Hi. Well, now that we've finally got the picture moving around, even though I told you to do that before I was done typing, because I was going to dump typing and I was going to save the file. So, now that we've gone out and blamed her for the explanation as to why we didn't start talking as soon as the video started up, we are here to talk about the newest episode of Doctor Who. The Name of the Doctor. Is that the right title? I'm not really quite sure.
The Doctor's name, was it?
Whatever. The one that got every fan's panties in the bunch, including my own. In fact,
Was it protests in London?
oh yeah, I don't know if those were legit pictures or not, but all the same, it got the point across fairly well.
Yes, it did.
Overall, I have to admit, I like this episode a lot. Surprisingly enough, I was kind of pissed at the very end of the day that I was incapable of actually properly bitching at it.
It totally sidewalled me. I was not expecting something that was that good. Moffat did good. He hid the Doctor's name from us still.
I have to admit, the subplot with River Song showing back up was awesome. I did appreciate seeing her again, despite not seeing her ever since Clara basically showed up. I think that makes sense, though, in regard that, she would sort of stop showing up after Amy and Rory sort of took the side. But it was good to actually see an official goodbye to the character, more or less. And the fact that she was cybernetic, she was the version after she had died, so I think we're pretty much done with River Song after this.
Probably.
She's finally gotten her goodbye. I have to admit, not as tearful or as epic as Rose's leaving of the show.
I said goodbye. Yeah, it's tearful as her goodbye.
Yeah, but then, I don't know. As much as I enjoy watching the relationship with River Song and the Doctor, I still ship Rose and the Doctor. More specifically, the Ninth Doctor. I did actually prefer the Ninth Doctor over the 10th Doctor. Whereas...
Rose and 10.
Bleh. Tennant was a great guy, I have to admit, but I think he was a character in and of itself. And to be honest, he did make the goodbye very much more believable.
Yeah, considering you can still go back and watch Doomsday and get teary-eyed. At least I can.
I have to admit, the one thing I didn't much care for her griping towards the Doctor and stuff like that is he kind of buried her as the 10th Doctor. He never even knew who she was at that point in time, and I was kind of like, that's a little unfair since you died so early on in his lifetime. He didn't even know who you were. I kind of think that was a dickish move on her part, but the fact that he basically explained, yeah, I can always see you sort of thing, it was very heartwarming and touching, though we still yet to actually see the Doctor say, I love you. We had the meta crisis supposedly whisper it in Rose's ear, which actually is technically confirmed based off of what I've read off of Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt.
We didn't hear it, though.
Agreed, we didn't hear it. Overall, though, I have to admit, the fact that we didn't get to see the Doctor's name, the idea... I loved this one line. That is the TARDIS. What else do you think they'd bury me in? That was the greatest line in all of Doctor Who that I've heard so far. I love what's his name? I'm talking about writers. What's his name? Oh, crap, it's escaping me again.
Are you talking about the showrunner Moffat?
Before Moffat.
Oh, Davies.
Davies. I'm terrible with names. As much as I love Davies' runs and stuff like that, I have to admit that one line, whoever came up with that one line deserves a frickin' award. What else would they bury me in? The whole, leaking, that seems to be a common day occurrence for a lot of the episodes, is that something's leaking or something's combusting, and it's like it's a concept. How could the bigger on the inside be leaking onto the outside? Would it eventually encompass all of eternity? That's kind of seems a little dangerous.
Yeah, that would, considering it's infinite.
Yeah, but a little worried that they should have gotten that patched. Anyway, it's still an epic scene and stuff like that, and I loved I love Strax in this. The comic relief actually turned into the voice of reason, which kind of threw me for a bit of a loop. We got to see what would have happened if the Doctor didn't exist, and here's the epic part. I was so ticked when I heard about the rumor going around that the Christopher Eccleston was not technically the Ninth Doctor, and that there was a missing Doctor in between all of that. And then we actually got to the end of the episode, and we were introduced to what's his name?
John Hurt.
And he said so little, but I was just blown away. I was jumping up and down after this episode, screaming bloody murder and different curse words because it was just so good. I wanted to rip this apart because I was like, if he becomes the Ninth Doctor and retcons that, even all the continuity for the new one, I would have been ticked as all hell. The only question is now is which Doctor is he, considering she's already explained she's met 11. The 11th Doctor is familiar with said Doctor, so I'm guessing he has to be an older version of one of the Doctors, and that only could be two Doctors who we technically have. Well, it can only be one Doctor, actually. It can only be the 8th, but that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because it took 40 years for the first Doctor to get aged up to actually look different. So something must have happened to the 8th Doctor to really age-mify him. And I'm not too familiar with too much of the continuity on that one, since he stayed pretty much the same through most of his actual appearance afterwards.
I'm not too familiar with the continuity of how the Time Lords age, but I think John Hurt as the Doctor is going to be kind of like the Valeyard to the Dream Lord, where he's not truly the Doctor. He's probably what the Doctor could be, like in a darker side.
You just want to bring up the Valeyard because you want to stretch your muscles on how awesome your actual information is. They already established the Valeyard as continuity freaking nightmare. I honestly think with how Moffat has done this recent series, he has a decent explanation for how this guy is technically the Doctor, but at the same time, is considered not the Doctor. It's got to be with the Time War, or it really does. That's the only explanation in my book, that he did the time lock. I don't know exactly how he did it, but he did the time lock, and then we got Christopher Eccleston as the new Doctor.
I don't know. I think he's probably going to be like an alternate or something.
I think that would be a complete and total cop out, in my personal opinion.
Probably. More than likely it would be, but I don't have that imagination like you do to think of something like that.
Overall, though, I just loved this episode. We got to see all of the previous Doctors. The first Doctor has officially gotten his own original speaking role. We've seen the TARDIS in her base form. Oh, man, nice to see Sexy undressed a little bit. Anyway, I have to admit, though, overall, it was just a beautiful episode. And a lot of people, like, when they actually complain about how the 50th anniversary Doctor Who movie is coming out, and I'm like, I want to see some of the old Doctors. This is kind of what I was getting at, because a lot of the original actors are already dead, and so even if they did find new people to portray them, it wouldn't really be the same in my book. But I just wanted to actually see them mentioned, so to speak. I wanted to see them running across the screen, or maybe just a call out, or what's the word I'm looking for? A shout out, or just sort of like a little just seeing the actors actually just appear on the actual screen just for a little bit, not actually playing the Doctor, but just showing up and maybe doing something important that sort of does a little callback to their original actors, because I have seen a lot of the actual new Doctors, and even Eccleston's aged quite a bit from what I've seen from his more recent interviews, so he doesn't even look like he did when he played the Doctor.
Yeah, but makeup in Hollywood.
Okay, yeah, maybe for those two, but I'm afraid Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker do not look anything like their original thing. So I'm like, you can't really explain that. Yeah, there really is. So I think it'd be better off if they just played a different part if they did bring him in. But from what I've heard, the only other Doctor that actually got brought in was Eccleston, and we don't know how that worked out at all. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I'm afraid I don't have much more hope for it, since it looks like it's going to be David Tennant and Matt Smith.
Yeah, you get what you get, I guess.
Overall, though, I think this would have been a much better as, like, the 50-year anniversary Doctor Who special. Like, they said this was the 51, and that the movie was supposed to just be basically a special. Because I honestly think this is going to be the better 50th anniversary episode, because it made mention to every single Doctor in that one episode. And to be honest, I loved what they did. I think Moffat took some of Davies and actually got, screwed his head on right after they got rid of Amy and Rory. I loved their ending. It was pretty it was heart-wrenching. Didn't make any friggin' sense to me, but it doesn't always need to be smart in order to make you feel for it. So, I have to admit, after they finally got rid of those two, things finally started to actually seem like, oh yeah, we've got this overarching, confusing story. Whereas with Rory and Amy, it was kind of like, hey, where can we go now?
Yeah, they did drop a lot of references throughout the season 7 after Amy and Rory were gone. That
You need to speak up, babe. I can barely hear you.
there was a lot of references throughout the season 7 that got brought back in this one. And I noticed that in this episode there was a lot of references to previous episodes. Not only with just the visuals, but with their speaking too. Because the one that sticks out the most is Madame Vastra said like something about the stars were going out, which was I think a really good reference when the Dalek with Davros.
Overall, I have to admit, I hated the ending, but at the same time, I loved it because it, like, literally, they're still in the Doctor's timeline, so it makes sense that he would run into David Tennant for the movie, because he's still in his own timeline, so we don't really have to, because anyone who's actually watched the original Who, so those of you who don't watch the old Who, more often than not, if the Doctor really needed to meet himself, the Time Lords themselves would have to pluck the Doctors out of their own time stream in order to bring them forward in order to help. So I was kind of wondering how they were going to get around that. Did he just sort of run into it and David Tennant knew exactly what he was going to turn into and he was at the end of the day? That kind of made that would have been a little weird. But him going back on his own time stream, I think that might make a little bit more sense. We'll see if Moffat's capable of keeping up this new amount of respect that I have earned for him.
I think they did a really good cliffhanger for this one. It feels like it's going to tie in really lovely with the movie, just at the end of it. Cliffhangers.
Now, all we need is the Master to show up, and we're golden.
Yes. I would love for the Master to show back up.
Yeah, I'm afraid the Master has been strangely absent. He seemed to be only a David Tennant enemy, and it's kind of like, dude, I would have loved to have seen like this stone cold, serious like Master with these big eyes and stuff like that, and just sort of, you were looking at the camera, weren't you?
Looking at your face and camera.
I would have just loved to see, like, Matt, this goofy, childish sort of Doctor, playing off this most straight and air. It would have been like a complete and total reversal, because David Tennant, whenever he dealt with the Master, was very solemn and serious, and he took everything pretty serious, whereas the Master was kind of like goofy. So it would have been like I'd see that as total role reversal, which I think would have been freaking cool as hell.
That would have been funny. But we might see the Master in the movie, because Tennant's coming back.
It's possible.
John Sim might come back to reprise his role as the Master.
Actually, I've heard some stuff that he might not. If they do, it's probably going to be a completely new Master, because the Master's always managed to cheat death. Because technically, he was supposed to be dead during the 8th Doctor's special movie. But as we can all tell, death never seems to go very well with the Master. They're just like oil and water. They just never mix. You know, as much as the Doctor likes to say, I'm the most biggest time traveler, my grave is going to be the most dangerous, I think the Master's would be even worse, simply for the fact of how many rules of reality this man breaks on a regular basis. He's already technically out of regenerations quite a while back. How the heck is this guy still around?
Yeah, the Master's been through crap, and he's still going. He'll never die.
That's what happens when you escape from a frickin' black hole. Shit just doesn't seem to be as bad anymore.
Not only that, but a time-locked Time War? Pretty sure he escaped from that.
Well, who knows? I mean, they never really explained that. And to be honest, for all we know, the Time Lords could come back again. You know, try to break out again, considering all of the retconning Matt Smith has done. You screwed up so much! We managed to actually break out on our own! Who knew that was possible? I would love to actually see that the Time Lords pop back up and they force a regeneration on Matt Smith, because he's just caused so much damage to the space-time continuum. Because how many crazy things Matt's done in his run as the Doctor, it's getting to the point where it's kind of like somebody needs to stop him. Though to be honest, the monsters for the Great Intelligence, I've noticed a reoccurring theme is that they've got this weird sort of faceless sort of thing going on for almost all of Matt Smith's reference villains, and I really wish they'd do some more with some of these. I mean, they were pretty snazzy with their top hat and the black suit and stuff like that, and it's kind of like do something with them, honestly.
They looked really cool, but they weren't. They were just for show.
Yeah, a lot of Matt Smith's villains are kind of like just for show, and it's kind of like use them. I would have preferred it if he was somehow behind the silence in some way, and we could have maybe seen some sort of one of these faceless villains from before come back instead of having to reinvent the wheel every single time. I mean, how many costumes do you think this guy goes through? Just different outfits and stuff like that. Moffat, you need to calm down. You reuse. You have over 50 years of Doctor Who history you can call back on. You don't need to just bring back the Great Intelligence. There's tons more people that you can call on. Not just the big names. Trust me, there's plenty of people who would love to come back and give the Doctor hell, at least for maybe an hour or say. Come on.
Do it, Moffat. You know you want to.
Cater to the fans. Come to the dark side. Anyway, overall, I have to admit that the writing was great. The concept was great. Everything just fell perfectly into place for this episode. It was like the stars aligned for Moffat, and everything just hit each and every single one on the way down, and it just worked beautifully. Everything made sense at the end of the day, and not to mention getting to see the first Doctor getting into his TARDIS for the very first time. I just like.
He's over here fanboying.
Shh. I'm gonna be over in my fanboy squeeing. That doesn't make any sense. I'll be over there in that corner squeeing. Oh, speaking of which, we have a new collective.
Yes, Charity's now joined us.
Her OC for My Little Pony. So we're probably going to be popping up with all sorts of things, like the scarf in the background, because it is way too dang hot to be wearing a scarf, trust me.
That's because someone here is a knitter and a crocheter.
So we'll probably be seeing other things. Maybe I can get an actually crocheted what would you call it? A sonic screwdriver?
I'm gonna make you a bow tie.
I don't know. I think I'd probably just rather go out and get a regular red bow tie.
It'd be weird to make one.
It would be. Well, anyway. I got the hiccups. So, in other related news, anyway. We have to admit, this episode has just been a lot of fun, and everything just fell into place. But I still think Moffat needs to be reined in a little bit when it comes to some other things. Like I said, didn't much care for the journey of the center of the TARDIS, I didn't much. Why did we need to bring back the little kids? I really didn't see a need for them at all.
I think all I did was make a reference to Souffle Girl. That's about it.
Yeah, that wasn't necessarily necessary in my opinion. It's just seeing those kids, it was kind of like the boy wasn't too bad, but the girl is just every single time I look at her and I remember that in the Silver Nightmare episode, and I'm like, yeah, she really is. I don't think it's her fault. I think she's actually a fairly good actor for what's given to her, but I think, oh my god, the character is just so irritating. And as the last angry geek actually said, shoot her now. I have to admit, I have those exact same sentiments on that one. So anyway, that is the Doctor's name, and I have to admit it went out better than expected. I didn't expect a whole lot, but I was pleasantly happy with the overall experience that Moffat.
I think the acting probably really helped a lot for this episode.
Not to mention, I love the hypnosis thing and stuff like that. The concept behind time travel.
That was cool. I loved that with Vastra and them.
And I loved the whole idea. I was like, what did you expect, to find a body? And it's kind of like, well, yeah, actually, I was kind of expecting to find a body. But the whole idea that time travel is kind of wounds in the fabric of reality was actually
sneaky and logical. It makes sense in my mind.
What are you, Vulcan? Logical. I'm trying to insert as much humor as I possibly can into this. Let me know if it's working. Anyway, I have to admit, everything just worked. It's like Amy and Rory left, and all of a sudden Moffat and Skyke, you know what? Let's really throw these guys for a loop. Let's something so crazy that we've never actually seen happen on Doctor Who, and let's do it. I have to admit, though, I was very happy that I actually got to hear the famous "fantastic" again, as well as getting to see, even if it wasn't actually Christopher Eccleston, running around in the Eccleston outfit, Colin Baker's Technicolor coat of many colors, and
Scarf we saw again.
then of course we got to see the third Doctor, and I know you can actually kind of tell when I was watching it and stuff like that. It was staticky, so they were actually taking stuff from the original show and putting her in the background, basically. And it's kind of cheating, but to be honest, hey, you've got 50 years of it. You got 50 years of it. Might as well use it some way.
It's the original. Why not? It makes us happy.
Even though she's watched only so much of the original first Doctor.
I'm trying.
Well, I think that's going to be it. We're probably going to be back for quite a few of the earlier episodes, back with Christopher Eccleston's original run. Be sure to be back to watch me gush over that a little bit more. I'm terrible when it comes to Eccleston. I think his portrayal of the Doctor was just fabulous.
So we found our summer project. We're going to go back over the earlier versions of New Who.
And you know what? If you don't actually want to watch us go over some of the New Who or anything like that, we are going to be back come November 23rd, hopefully, depending on if we can get an American release in movie theaters. I'm definitely going to want to see that new episode on big screen. Could you imagine seeing David Tennant and Matt Smith as the Doctor on the big screen? Oh, that would be... I'd be like...
He'd be fanboying harder than I'd be fangirling.
The only way that would actually be possible if Eccleston actually showed up, which I hear they're planning on at least using stock footage of him. So, here's hoping. Anyway, I'm Mitchell Sanders, and this is
Brandy McKenzie.
And I'm talking a lot more than she is.